Welcome to Change the Narrative. I'm your host, JD Fuller.
I'm Susie Younger,
an African-American licensed psychotherapist.
I'm also a licensed therapist.
We talk about the isms. We talk about the phobias, anything that marginalizes and oppresses.
As a white woman, I ask the questions white people are too afraid to ask.
Everything we are not and everything we are is because of fear. Through a mental health lens, Susie and I will have difficult conversations with celebrity guests, political activists, and everyone in between. Our mind will tell us whatever we want to believe, but the truth lives in the body, and that's where change occurs. Are you ready to change the narrative?
JD has been stalking our next guest to come on the show, and you're about to see why. We have a Harvard University graduate, a journalist, a producer, a writer, an entrepreneur, a storyteller, and a pioneer who traveled all over the world. In fact, 10 countries before she was 25. She recognized that she didn't see people who looked like her. So she decided to create a free travel app dedicated solely to people from the global majority, making not only her own dreams come true, but theirs as well. She took her passion for storytelling, travel, and culture and created this fabulous platform called Melanin On The Map. And we can't wait to hear all about it. Meet Ashley McDonough.
Did you say your last name right?
Yes, you did, actually. So yes. Yes, McDonough. No one ever gets it right.
I know. We were practicing that yesterday, and I forgot to ask you before we went on the air.
Oh, yes, you did say it right. Yes. Right? That was a great intro. Thank you.
See? Every time. Excellent. Well, I will admit that I was stalking you a little bit, but you were good enough to not make me stalk you like I have to stalk others.
Okay.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been just so fascinated by your platform and just so impressed with this idea that came to you. So
I
want people to get to know who you are.
Yes.
So basically, introduce yourself and tell us who Ashley McDonough is. Where are you from and how did you get here?
Yes. So I am Ashley McDonough. I am originally born and raised in Queens, New York. I grew up first generation American. So I've been obsessed with, culture and travel. All of these things are just kind of like instilled in me from a young age, just from my upbringing alone. And growing up in a city like New York, it's very diverse. It's full of just a lot of different people, cultures, all of that. So I kind of just always had this passion in me to begin with, as a young girl. And then fast forward, as I got older, I went to Howard University. Shout out to Von Bison. Okay. And, when I moved to DC, it was such an incredible experience as a whole, just, growing up coming from New York, but then being in DC with another fully diverse culture, and then meeting all these amazing people at a university like Howard. And then when I got to Howard, I studied abroad in Spain. And I think that kind of sparked that travel, like as my adult years, kind of, I'm traveling to a new country. I stayed there for a year. I studied there. Like as an adult, it was just a whole nother experience for me. So fast forward from there, I was initially in journalism and production. I moved back to New York. I worked at some amazing companies. I moved here to LA. And then I launched my business. I knew it was going to be something that I did eventually. I knew that I had this passion for culture and creating these opportunities for other people of color in this travel space that I knew didn't exist prior. So that's kind of the background of how it all happened.
Well, so you answered my second question. So I just want to back up and talk about HBCU and talk about what that brought to your life, because I'm an HBCU envy. I wish I had known. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right, exactly.
So like I see all these young people going, I'm like, damn, if I had known that would have changed the trajectory of my life.
Right.
So talk to me about
I hear that
historically Black college experience.
Oh man, like I cannot emphasize my love for Howard enough, and all HBCUs as a whole, just because this is the one time where you're really fully celebrated to the extent that these universities give you. It tells you so much about your culture that you just kind of didn't even notice, even growing up in a very diverse city like I did. Just kind of meeting all of the people, the experience, like just walking the campus, the legacy attached to just the professors that have working at the campus, it's just a full cultural experience that you would not have expected. And the crazy thing is me being first generation American and my parents being from the Caribbean, going to an HBCU it's not really like a big deal unless you're here in the States, you know? Like for a lot of people who are born and raised here, unless you're from the South, then it's really not that big of a deal. So me coming from first generation American parents, it was just kind of like, you're going to college. It doesn't really matter where you go, but you're going to college. And then when I went to Howard, and then I'm like, oh yeah, just the culture, just walking on the campus is just a whole experience. So I definitely recommend it for everyone.
You know, and I feel like, you know, you're kind of walking amongst the ancestors at an HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I imagine it's like. And you don't get that.
Yes.
In America.
I know. And especially somewhere like Howard, like everything, it's like you're sitting in the seat and you're thinking like, oh my God, Toni Morrison sat here. Or like, oh my God, Martin Luther King walked here. Like, it's really that real. Like I wrote for the college newspaper that Zora Neale Hurston founded. Like her office is right there. And it's like that type of legacy you don't get once you leave. You know, that's a once in a lifetime experience.
So very true. Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for explaining it that way. You know, so you figured out traveling was a thing early on, but it seems to me that something was, don't go in the wrong direction with this one. Let me finish the question before you.
Okay.
So it seems like something had to be missing from your life or in your travel, you know, that became the catalyst for Melanin On The Map. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it was there, you wouldn't have birthed it. So what was missing in either way that this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's two things. So for one, I think it was just being a travel lover myself and not having that outlet to look towards, to see other people who looked like me, to see other people who wanted to create these travel experiences, who like their passion was really travel. Like there were other sites and brands, but it wasn't really what I needed it to be. There was no real direct connection. There was no ways to create a career out of this. Like it was just a bunch of pretty pictures that I saw on other brands. And I was just kind of needing more. So it was kind of, that was one side. And the other side was just my overall desire to become an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to create something for myself. I knew I wanted to create a legacy that will withstand and, you know, be able to be passed down through generations. And I knew that I just had to fulfill the purpose that God placed in my heart. Like it wasn't working for someone else for the rest of my life, or, you know, working towards someone else's dream getting fulfilled. That just wasn't in my ministry personally. So it was a combination of the two.
You know, that brings to mind something for me. I think that there's something that is connected to being an immigrant, coming from immigrant families, that vision is easier to hold on to for people of African-American descent who are born here and have dealt with this oppressive culture forever. And I think that, you know, that's what I hear in what you're saying is it's like, coming to America is this dream.
Yeah.
You know? And so when you get here or your family gets here, you get to further the dream.
Right.
So many feet on your head here as an African-American, you have to work to get that dream, even to have it, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I like to call it like the audacity of being an American citizen. Like I feel that I had this desire and urge for the simple fact that my parents didn't, you know, they had to come here. And then my grandparents and my great grandparents, they had to come here and they just were just focused on, you know, being stable. They just had to make it work with what they had. But me being born and raised in this country, being an American citizen, going through my schooling and all of that here, with no fear of immigration or anything, I kind of just said like, oh yeah, I'm going to pursue everything that I knew my parents didn't have that privilege because they weren't from here. And I mean, as ridiculous as American can be, it is a beautiful place to build a dream from scratch because like you have that privilege of all of the access and all of the resources. And I just took full advantage of that because again, I knew my ancestors didn't.
So you bring up something else, and you're making me deviate totally away from my questions, but it's
Uh-huh.
appropriate to brought it up, which is, again, you're talking through an immigrant lens, right? So this idea that and I work with clients who have come from immigration, and they lose the connection that you maintained, right? So they're just like, why are my parents all hung up on this, this dream that they had when I'm just here and I just want to be American. But somehow you held on to that. My parents didn't, and so I will. So African Americans in this country don't have access to that. So for you, it feels like a privilege, but for us, I think it's more like we just don't even know that's an option, but you knew that because of the legacy, right? And so I'm really curious when I hear you say what you're saying, because it's like, there is such a huge difference in people who migrate here. Really different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know about this dream you're talking about. I wouldn't even know. I saw my parents suffer. I saw them being poor. I saw them struggling to feed, feed us all. But it was just like, get a job, get security, get that tenure, get secure. Like I didn't ever travel till I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I know. And you said you're born here and your parents are born here too?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's real. It's real. And that's why I do feel like you are a product of your environment, because like it is a part of like what you witness and all of these things. Like I knew that my parents came here, they worked their whole lives. And I mean, I'm just like, no, there's more. There has to be more. Like it can't just be work, work, work and like stress. And like it has to be more. Like there's more to life. And that's why I have this deep passion for travel, because it shows you that there's more to life. It shows you that there is life outside of you and your city and your people and your network. And it's like you get so accustomed to living this life day to day that you forget that there's so much out there. And I think it's just, that's why I'm so grateful to have grown up with this bicultural experience, because I do get the best of both worlds. I do get the stability and the family and all these things, but I also get that there's a life outside of there that is just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, when I was working in LA on the front line, in terms of like working with kids from just LA born, some of the most impoverished communities, they hadn't never even gone to the beach in LA.
It's crazy.
So when you talk about travel, that was a deal. I mean, that's overwhelming to me that this is your city and you've never even been there. So you're talking about something on a deeper level when you say, you're grateful for having that access, because it's real. It's like, if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's important to really, really push that to children, because if you don't know, you don't know. It's kind of like when you're in school and you only know what your teachers teach you. You only know what your parents educate you on. But it's like, if no one's teaching you that, if no one's showing you, no, this is not the only option to get a 9-to-5 and work for someone else for the next 50 years. This is not the only option to live in this city that you grew up in forever. That's not it. There's so many options that you get to decide on, because it's your life. You get to plan it out the way you see fit. I'm fully aware that the life that I chose is very unorthodox, because it's not the norm for other people. You do this, you get a job, and da 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 da. I get it, but I think you do have a say in what you want your life to look like.
Yeah, you have to know you have that say. You have to know you have that ability. I think that's
absolutely.
Kids are so undereducated in the inner cities of America that there is no vision available. And that's what you're talking about. I so appreciate that. And that's one of the things that, drew me to your IG so much, was like, wow, this is so important for people from the global majority to see, And so what it made me think of, Ashley, is your brand is the new Green Book.
Yes.
Right. So for those who don't know, those who don't know, let me just explain that. The Green Book was the Black Traveler's Guide through the Jim Crow era, right? And the fact that it's still needed so much today is so powerful to me. So, basically what you created is the new Green Book.
Thank you so much. I mean, there's so much legacy attached to that. And it's so crazy that you even bring that up, because when I got to Howard, one of the very first pieces that I did was on the Black travel movement and the Green Book, and kind of just the trajectory of it and where did we start and where we're going and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I love the movie. I love the history of the entire thing. Mm-hmm. And it's still needed till this day, because the Black travel experience is very specific. You know, if you're not a Black traveler, you don't know what that looks like. And that's another reason why I wanted to create this platform, to connect Black travelers, minority travelers to each other, because the experience is different. You know, like that's like a lot of places you may be the only one, you know, certain things like that is not just the everyday experience for every traveler out there. So, yeah.
You know, you said a couple of things that trigger feelings in me. And one is that, you know, with my white friends, I'll say, well, I got to see if I can travel there. That's one of the first things I'll say. I have to know what that's going to be like environment wise. And it's so foreign. The idea, even though they've been with me my whole life, it's still foreign, the idea that there's certain places I won't go because I don't feel safe.
Yeah, I know. And it sounds crazy to even feel like you have to say that to people.
Right.
But again, like you said, if you don't know, they don't know. Like that's not their experience. That's not any fault of theirs. That's just not their experience, you know? And the thing is, they will never have to experience that. There's a lot of places they can go and travel and no one will look at them different. But in certain places they go and they take pictures of you like you're like a celebrity or something. Oh. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about the experience and just the lack of safety, you know, the Black traveler has to feel unsafe in America and then want to relax and go abroad and still feel unsafe. There's like no place, right? Where there is, I'm going to go and just let my guard down. I was in Aruba. And I'm minding my own damn business. I am sitting there rearranging the chairs for me and my friend. And this white woman comes up to me and she says, so how much are the chairs? I looked at her and said, why are you asking me that? She's like, well, how much are the chairs? Long story short, she must have asked me about 4 times. I said, I need to know why you're asking me that. She didn't have an answer. And all she said was, are you from America? I said, I don't care where I'm from. This guy walks by who has a shirt on that says service provider. I'm standing here moving chairs and you're asking me. And she was offended. And you don't have to be so angry about it. And that's the thing. It's like, we can't even go on vacation and put our guard down without you know, white people coming up to us and trying to have us serve them.
Right. No, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. And that is probably like a lighter story. I'm sure people have worse. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's like, I mean, a lot of these places, they don't even see Black travelers often. So they don't even know how to deal with them when they are around them. So it gets very awkward and weird. Like she probably caught herself and said, oh, she doesn't work here. And then was too embarrassed to say something to you.
Right. So she had to turn me into the aggressor. She had to turn me into
Right. But I mean, it's very unfortunate. It's very important that like it happens far too often. And I think that's why it's so important that Black people of color do change that narrative. And the only way to change it is by going to these cities, going to these countries and showing people what it is to be a Black American. Because you said, are you from America? Like there's so many different types of versions of Black Americans.
Yeah, and there's so much stereotype about Americans, and you get lumped into that. Go ahead, Suze, your hand's raised like a good student.
My hand is raised, yes. Well, I don't want to invade in this space, but you know, it's what you're saying, Ashley. We had a guest 2 weeks ago. This has come up a lot where I think it was Kevin, JD, and he was talking about going to Europe and going to a Burger King. And he was sitting there eating his sandwich and his fries. And people were looking at him like he was an alien from another country.
Yeah.
African-American man.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, an African-American man.
Yeah. And as if an African-American man don't get enough hate and discrimination here in the US. Yeah. To think like you would think sometimes it's actually safer in certain places outside of America. I mean, it's really just, it's unfortunate across the board.
Yeah. You know, I was with my the person who shall never be named as my ex-wife, but I was with her in Italy, and we're walking along the street, and this Italian dude comes up, bum rushes us, and pretty much pushes me out the way and starts talking to her about being beautiful and how and I just caught a few words. I mean, he like pulls her aside. So I had to, buck up, like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah, like you see me standing here. Yeah.
What are you doing, But that's another layer, right? Just the idea that you're interesting and I want to, and I can. I mean, that's like another level of privilege that we don't even think about here.
Yes, it's very invasive. It's very invasive. And I mean, let's not even talk about the touching of the hair and the taking of the pictures, and just there's levels to all of it. Yes. But I think either way, it's inappropriate and it's invasive regardless, because it's just about like personal space, regardless Black or white or whatever. It's just personal space.
But but actually, personal space is different for the dominant white culture versus us. There's a difference.
Oh, absolutely. And that goes against what they're taught.
Yes. I mean, it's access. You have access. You get to move throughout. You get to have access to everything. Black people are like, why are you standing so close to me?
Right. Right.
We're already suspect,
Right. I know. I feel like we always just have a guard up just because.
We have
to. But why? Exactly. But it's kind of like, but again, in the white culture, they're not taught that. They're just more like free loving and open. And I mean, again, that's no fault of theirs. That's what they were taught. So, I mean, it's just messed up.
That's called privilege, and that's called entitlement.
Yes.
We're not afraid to speak that on this show, Ash.
Oh, then my kind of people. My kind of people.
We just call it out over here.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to shift gears just a little bit, and actually, let me finish that last question, which was, did you have the Green Book in mind when you birthed this project? Was that specifically the idea, or was it similar, or not at all?
No, it wasn't. I mean, I knew, like, I always just like give respect to those that came before me. It wasn't in mind because it wasn't created in the same sense that was created. That was created more so like of a protection and like a source of reference. Like we created this because we wanted to focus on like connection and community more than anything. And then showing other people how to travel safe and travel smarter and monetize their travels and all of that from a different standpoint. So that changing the face of the minority travel just looks different as a whole. So I think with the times and with the focus, it was still two completely different things.
All right, I'm gonna need you to stop calling us minority because we're the global majority.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna need you to shift that language.
Okay.
We are, in fact, the global majority.
Got it. So the global majority.
Right on. Let's just tack that in there. All right.
Got it.
So, as therapists, we can't help but come to a mental health question. It's who we are. It's in our blood. And there's no doubt that, on one level, we're always trying to remove the stigma of therapy, mental health. Like, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And there's no doubt that travel is good for one's mental health. I'm just wondering, like, in terms of your grounding, and your own mental health, is there any other way that you've been able to sustain it, in your healthy lifestyle? Any other things you subscribe to?
I have a therapist. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Oh, yes. I knew there was a reason. Pro therapy. Oh my goodness. I think it is so ridiculous that people get in their heads about, oh no, you're that kind of person, and all these things of the stigma around it. But like, therapy, having an outlet, having a person outside of you and your friends and your family who know you, and just to talk to and vent to and just share your life with and like get to go through the stages of life with. Oh yes, I have a therapist who I love. She's a Black woman. She's from New York. She lives in LA just like me. Therapy is it. Me and my fiance now are actually going to go to couples therapy before we get married. So I am pro therapy, 100%.
Awesome. I didn't even know that when I asked the question. I was hoping.
Yes.
Right on. So, In terms of the pandemic, let's go back a little bit. I mean, there was a whole travel shutdown. What did you do? Because it seems you came out stronger than ever.
Oh, my God is so good to me. Let me tell you, because it's so crazy how life works and everything. So before I became an entrepreneur, I was a journalist and producer, and I was already had my full-time job. And then I was waiting until my business was where I wanted it to be before I took the leap of becoming a full-time entrepreneur. Coincidentally enough, I put my 2 weeks in probably a week before the world shut down. I had no idea that COVID was going to happen. I had no idea, like none whatsoever. When I tell you a week prior, I put the 2 weeks in, I went on vacation. And while I was on vacation was the first time I heard about COVID. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be like Zika, Ebola, it's going to pass. It didn't pass. By the time I came back, they shut the world down that week after. And I just had to figure it out because I quit my job. I had a travel business. And I was just like, okay, Ashley, I'm not going back to corporate America. So we need to figure this out now. And I mean, I figured it out. The good thing is with the travel business that I have, there are various sectors to it outside of the actual going on trips part. So we show other people how to build travel brands and monetize their travels. And then, now we have the travel bays and travel besties. So we're connecting travelers and all of that. So there's various different sectors, but that travel component was completely shut down. We literally did not book a trip for a year and a half or something.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Nothing on that component. But I mean, it all worked out. Like I just kind of had to just pivot different parts of my business. I know during that time, we also really focused on a lot of Black businesses who were going under. So highlighting those businesses, because we do have a large platform, a lot of people were paying for promotion and they needed assistance in that sector. So we just shifted, we still had our focus of travel, Black travel and all of that, but we definitely wanted to highlight those businesses and show the other travelers and everything in that space that this too will pass. We're going to make it out of this. So we did. And I mean, here we are, like on the other side of it. So
yeah, for real. With all this great travel talk, you have to have a travel nightmare story. So I want you to think of your travel nightmare story that you want to share with us.
Yes, I actually have a few.
Okay. And then tell us what you learned in the process, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
One of my most memorable, though, was my Cuba experience. So I went to Cuba. This was right after, I think, Trump was elected out and they did that whole change so we could go. So we literally like, okay, let's go right away before he changes whatever. So we went to Cuba, into Havana, Cuba. It was beautiful. I mean, the Cuban experience, like the food, the people, the culture.
I want to go.
It's just the people are the nicest people I have ever met. They are so sweet. So the only thing is they don't do cards or debit cards, credit cards, no type of ATM transaction type of things, cash only. Now here in the States, everything is cards. You could Venmo anything. So I'm not used to carrying cash like ever. But I knew this prior to going. So I'm like, okay, it was me and my two best friends. We all took all this cash out and then we were good. So we're like, okay. And we were celebrating a birthday too. So we were like, I'm taking things from the mini bar and just, charge it to the room, just all of that. We're like, okay, we're just having a good time. So the day we're literally leaving this same day, we're on our way out and we're going to pay our bill that we charged to the room and everything. Like, oh yeah, we charged it to the card in the room. We get to the door and they're like, oh no, you have to pay in cash. But by now we have no cash left. We don't have any cash left because we had already paid for our driver to get to the airport. We didn't have anything to pay for. We were going back to the US. So like, we don't have any cash. And here we are, these three American Black girls just standing there like, oh, we don't have any cash. Like, oh, well, you can't leave.
What?
So we're like, okay. And then my best friend, she was just very sassy. She's like, okay, well, we need to go. So she's gathering her things. I don't know, we need to go. We're going to miss our flight. So she's gathering her things to go to the door and they lock the doors and they call the cops. So we're just like, oh, okay, you guys are serious. Like, we really can't leave at all. Like, I'm like, well, how can we even get money out there? Like, can we, like, Western Union or something? They're like, okay. But the thing is, they were so respectful. Like, here in the States, it would have been a big brawl. Like, they were so kind, so respectful this whole process. Then they're like, okay, well, we can Western Union money to ourselves through the internet. So I'm like, okay, but can we go? So they had to literally escort us to Western Union. They followed us the entire way. They followed us back, and then we were able to pay, and then they let us go. We did end up missing our flights, but we ended up meeting Cubans out there who were just kind of so sweet. They were just like, oh, it's okay. Like, we're gonna take care of it. They ended up buying us lunch, like, just goodness. And then we ended up getting on the next flight. But that was just a horror story because, like, we just definitely don't always have cash at all times. But even through all of that, it still didn't tarnish my viewpoint on Cuba or Cubans. It was one of my favorite trips of all time, either way.
What a great story. You picked the perfect one to tell us. Oh my God, it's like I was sitting on the edge of my seat over there.
No, I mean, it was crazy because, you know, you're just like, oh, charge it to the room, just very American.
Yeah,
that's
American.
The privilege. That's the American privilege. Just charge it to the room, get there with the full bill, no cash to pay.
Oh my God. All right, so, you know, ironic, I don't know if you know this or not, but you provide services to people. And, you know, Melanin on the Map is mom. And I think that's ironic. And I want to, right?
Yes, I never even thought of it. Yes.
Are you kidding? You didn't know that?
No, because you said mom. You said, what is it?
Melanin on the Map. Immediately mom came to mind.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I hear, but then there's the T, so I don't actually like.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but no,
me,
I get it.
Of course,
it's mom.
You know, I'm immediately going, and I'm like, wow, if I take the out, this is mom, and how appropriate, because moms provide services, they take care of people, right? So I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so the whole thing is like, you provide these services for the global majority, and you have marketed yourself that way. You know, like, that's the whole intent. But now you're shifting into another place. Or at least I'm aware that all of a sudden that I'm seeing all this travel bay
and travel besties.
Okay. Yes. And I'm wondering, are you about to become a dating service?
Oh, you know, I don't want to call it a dating service.
Okay.
No.
Matchmaking.
Because to me, again, it's focused on community. So the reason why, again, one of the main reasons why I launched the app, the brand overall, is because I wanted to connect like-minded travelers to other like-minded travelers, right? There are people who claim to travel or want to, or not really, but I mean the real travelers who, amidst this whole pandemic, we're still traveling and traveling smarter, and just like, who, like, this is their passion. They feel like they're not okay if they don't have that, like, real travelers. So it's about connecting those people to each other. Now, romantically, as friends, whatever, but just connecting them to each other. And then also with respect to all sexual preferences, which is another thing I didn't see in the travel space either. Like, even on these beautiful brands, you never see homosexual couples on these brands ever. I have never saw it. I am the only brand that I have seen two women romantically, two men romantically on these platforms. And I wanted to highlight that as well, because that is another type of travel that gets underlooked. You know, they don't think about what that looks like as a gay person traveling the world, as a gay Black person. And I think they deserve to be celebrated as well.
Love it. See, you were worth stalking. I knew it. So where is one place you think a person from the global majority has to visit in their lifetime? If you had to pick one place and one place only, what would that be?
I would say Italy.
Really? You answered that quick.
Yes. Italy is like my favorite place I've ever been.
Really?
First of all, I'm a foodie, so I love me some food, and the food is amazing, but just they really celebrate Black women there. Like, they're like a goddess. Like
I remember that.
I'll be walking, they're like, Beyonce. I'm like, where is she? I'm like, she's here. Like,
Is she
but
here?
they're like, you know, they celebrate you. So I think Italy for sure. Like,
Wait, let me just change that. They celebrate feminine Black women.
Yeah. Oh, well, yes.
My ass out the way. They push my ass out the way.
And that's the thing. That's why I feel like I don't even feel comfortable answering these questions, because for Spain is another example. I would say Spain too. I studied abroad in Spain and I had a great experience there. But I know Black women personally who said they had a terrible experience there.
I've heard that.
So it's really just depends. Like I've heard terrible things about Spain, but I lived there for a year and I loved it.
Okay, but it's still helpful to hear your perspective because you know, it offers another lens. I mean, I think one of the things I see in our community is there's so much fear, you know, about, and understandably, I'm not trying to hate on our community. It makes sense that we are afraid and careful and guarded. And when it comes to leaving the country, it's like the devil we know here, but then you're going to go to the devil we don't know. Like, what's that going to look like? So it gets potentially overwhelming. So I understand this. So I appreciate your narrative on this. You know, it really offers people another perspective, an opportunity.
Yeah.
No,
look, for sure.
Ashley, you're awesome. I knew you were going to be. I had no doubt and doubt it.
Thank you.
I'm so happy.
Thank you. You guys are awesome too. I am too. I love what you guys are doing. And this is so necessary. You know, I feel like, again, changing the narrative, like it's important to get these conversations going because, again, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And you have to promise to come back now that you know that I'm not as scary as the stalker I can be.
Oh, of course.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
All right.
I would love to.
Okay, awesome. We got that on recording now.
Yeah.
So you can't go back. I'm going to let Susie in here before I ask you the last question. Go ahead, Suze.
Okay, first of all, you are so inspiring. You are incredible. And what you're doing and the way that you present it and the whole conception of it is incredible. So here's my question, because I know you're not a one-trick pony. What next? What is next?
Oh, well, we definitely, now that we have this rebrand going with the Travel Bays and Travel Besties, I really want to continue to push that on a global scale and then focus on actual, you know, connections and actual meetups and retreats and group trips and all of that. I really do want to go into that space. And even with the retreats that we plan on doing, focused on mental health and Black women wellness and all of these things that we want to do. So once COVID dies down a little bit, we can really focus on that again. But yeah, a lot in store for sure.
Well, consider me as somebody who might do a mental health component. I really love that idea of identity. You know, that's my thing. That's what I do.
Yes, for sure. I will definitely connect with you because I want to just do so many different things with it, from like yoga, and then we can have like just like talking to one another, just like, you know, spas and just, you know, that wellness approach. So yeah,
I love it. Okay, tell people where they can find you because that's necessary. What'd you say, Sis?
I said, are you listening, Travel Channel?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
For real.
Yes.
So tell everybody where they can find you all the time. They need to know.
Yeah, so you could connect with me on Instagram, Melanin on the Map, of course. My personal Instagram is Ashley, ASHLEY _Milani, MILANI. We are in the app stores as well, Melanin on the Map. And yeah, you could just shoot me a DM, shoot me an email. I'm always available. Stalk me if you need to. I always respond. So yeah.
You sure do. You really do. So you alluded to this. Our final question has to do with the name of the show, which is, what are you doing to change the narrative?
What am I doing to change the narrative? I am existing as a Black woman.
Say it.
And that is more than enough to change the narrative, but I am existing blatantly for what my Blackness looks like and connecting with others whose Blackness looks the same.
Right on. Unapologetically. That's what I like.
Yes.
Yeah. It's beautiful that you have figured this out at your age. You know, I wish I had access to this when I was a lot younger, but I'm killing it now. So I do it as hard as I can right now, because it may be late in the game, but I'm doing it. So I appreciate you. I really do.
Guys. Thank you so much for having me, and keep up the great work. Again, these conversations are important. So just keep pushing, connecting, just, keep it up.
Yeah, I have no shame. If I see somebody that, I think would be good,
as you should. Yes, as you should, because that's how you do it. Sometimes it is just a DM. You're just one DM away or one email away. That's all it takes.
Right on. All right. So we have you on tape. You're coming back. I think you're awesome.
Absolutely.
Susie thinks you're awesome. I Am Music Productions thinks you're awesome. So stay in contact, and thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. This is fun.
All right. See you later.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good weekend.
You too.